resources and support to all families living with a disability so they may have a life like yours. And so today we have joined with us the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services and the Virginia Department of Education to talk about early intervention Part C and transitioning to Part B. So again, my name is Robin Church. I am the New Path Family Support Director at the ARC of Virginia, which is a program within the ARC of Virginia. And I am so happy that you all have decided to join us this morning and to learn about New Path and what we have to offer. A little about myself. I'm a single mom of 2 boys who are now teenagers. And my youngest son, who is in this picture above, was born with some health issues, and that's how I got introduced into early intervention years ago.
Hey, Robin, you mentioned pictures, so I wondered if you wanted people to see your slides already. You need to hit share screen. Because you said picture, so I thought maybe. So at the bottom of your, at the bottom, you see mute. Is Lucy standing by? And you see chat box. There's share screen. It's a green box.
No, that's not what I have.
You're not in the, well, just keep talking and I will see if I can find it for you. Go ahead with your story.
Oh, none of that is happening. Okay, I am so sorry, you all. All right, is it still not showing?
Yeah, that's okay though. I'm going to see if I can find it in the Google Drive.
I am so sorry, folks. Along with the pandemic, we have storms coming and some technical difficulties this morning. I do apologize. So I'll go ahead and start sharing some information about New Path to you. And so what is New Path? New Path is a nonprofit organization that is here for families to navigate the early intervention services from birth. And so we also are able to help families that are prior to giving birth. So we're here for those folks. We will help parents and caregivers understand the jargon in which our system may use. So sometimes as parents, we might feel lost and overwhelmed, worried about the unknown and what your child may need. And so sometimes providers will use some jargon that we don't understand, and it may help us to feel lost and confused and just not knowing what to expect. And so New Path will help you through that. We also will connect you with parents that have walked the walk. And so what that means is if you're wondering if you're the only one going through this process and would you like to meet other families that have gone through this same process, because it's kind of scary going through early intervention and the unknown. So New Path is also here to help you through that process. We can also help support, we'll help support the families during their transition into the school setting. And so what that means is, so what is the transition? Do you have a plan? Has early intervention supported you for that plan? And do you need more support? If you do, that is fine. Early intervention and New Path will help support you through that process as well. And so New Path also believes that it's important for us to stay focused on our successes, although we may encounter some barriers and some challenges along the way, which is it's kind of expected, right? And so New Path is here to help you through that process also. And then lastly, we provide supports and resources throughout your child's journey. So what does that mean is that we're just not here for just the first couple of years while your child is in early intervention. We're here to help support you along the way. So beyond early intervention, we are here for you. We are here to support you. We are here to help you through the process while you're getting into the school getting situated with the school. And so sometimes that can be difficult as well. And so just know that New Path is also here for you during that process. Okay. And so today we have some presenters. We have Kelly Webb, who is a parent, and Leah Tremblay, who is also a parent, and Sarah Moore from DBHDS. She's going to talk about early intervention and what it looks like to go through your transition.
And the slides are sharing now, ladies, so you are good to go. You'll just need to tell me when to move the slides forward.
Okay, can we back up one more, Tanya? To the parents. To the parents, I'm sorry.
Yeah. This is...
I'm sorry, one more. Yeah, keep going. One more. All right, so Kelly, oops, you just skipped us.
That's...
There we go. Kelly, would you like to just introduce yourself really quickly and introduce yourself, and then we'll have Leah introduce herself.
Wonderful. Thank you. My name is Kelly Webb, and I'm happy to be here today. I'm a parent of a 3-year-old boy. He has disabilities. We live in Richmond, Virginia, and my son began early intervention services at the age of 9 months. He just had his 3rd birthday back in May, so he was recently discharged. So I am very familiar with the process of this transition within this past year. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
All right, my name is Leah Tremblay. I live in Colonial Heights with my husband and our son, Joe. Joe is 12 years old, and so we are a little bit farther out from this whole early intervention experience, but it remains fresh in our memory, and I'm always happy to help other parents coming along the path behind me. So very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. All right, and Sarah is going to introduce herself. Sorry, we're sharing a computer.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Moore, and I'm a monitoring consultant with the Infant and Toddler Connection of Virginia, which is part of the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. And in just a little bit, I'm going to be talking with you all some more about Part C of the IDEA Act and Part B of the IDEA Act, which are involved in transition. All right, now for a moment, I'm going to turn it back over to Robin.
Hey, thank you, Sarah. All right. So now we're going to look at today's presentation, as Sarah had mentioned. So she will be presenting the early intervention and beyond. That is her presentation with the transition from Part B to Part C. And early intervention special education. The slides are from Dawn Hendricks from Virginia Department of Education, presented by Sarah. We also have our parent presenters, Leah and Kelly. If you guys have any questions, anything at all, you can please add that into the chat box. That would be greatly appreciated. And we will try to get to those by the end of this presentation. Okay? Thank you so much. And now we're going to open up early intervention and beyond.
That is going to take 1 second.
Sure, thank you.
That was emailed to me. So if you, one moment.
Thank you guys so much for your patience. And again, I do apologize for this delay. And I think we're just about ready. She's getting the slides up.
Okay, Tanya, let me know when you're ready for me to begin.
Okay, you should see them in a second.
It was,
Okay.
All right. Well, as I mentioned, my name is Sarah Moore, and I am a monitoring consultant with the Infant and Toddler Connection of Virginia. And I'm here today to talk about early intervention and beyond, transitioning from Part C services. Part C services are called early intervention. Early intervention is Part C of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Early intervention serves children from birth to age 3 In Virginia, services are provided through the Infant and Toddler Connection of Virginia by 40 local systems. Local infant and toddler connection systems provide services in homes, child care settings, and other community locations to support families and caregivers in meeting their children's developmental needs. Children are eligible for early intervention in Virginia if they have a 25% developmental delay in one or more developmental areas, including cognitive, physical, communication, social, emotional, and/or adaptive development, or if they show atypical development, and/or if they have a diagnosed physical or mental condition that has a high probability of resulting in a developmental delay. All children who are found eligible receive assessment for service planning, looking at strengths and challenges in all areas of development. Assessment for service planning includes gathering information from family and caregivers. After assessment for service planning, an individualized family service plan, also called an IFSP, is developed. This plan includes goals and outcomes based on the family's concerns and priorities. The IFSP documents the services that will be provided to address these goals and outcomes. Services provided through the IFSP may include physical therapy, speech, occupational therapy, and developmental services. Services take place in homes, daycares, or other community locations such as parks, libraries, or grocery stores based on family needs. Service providers coach families to support their child's developmental needs during everyday routines and activities and help families plan for follow-up between visits. Service coordination is provided for all families and is included on every individualized family service plan. Service coordinators participate in assessment for service planning and IFSP development and oversee implementation of the plan. Service coordinators check with families regularly, connect families to resources and community supports, and communicate with providers working with the family. A key role of service coordinators is to support families in planning and preparing for transition from early intervention. Supporting transition begins when the initial IFSP is developed. Discussion at this meeting includes making families aware of when their child may leave early intervention. When do children transition from early intervention? Children leave early intervention when they reach age level in all developmental areas and do not meet any other eligibility requirements. If they remain eligible, children leave early intervention when they turn 3 or are no longer age eligible. Children also leave early intervention when they begin services with the public schools through early childhood special education between the ages of 2 and 3. When children near the time they will leave early intervention, service coordinators meet with families to develop a transition plan. The transition plan helps families know what to expect when their child leaves early intervention and supports them in preparing for the next step. Transition planning is for all families, not just for those with children potentially eligible for preschool special education. What does it mean to say a child is potentially eligible for preschool special education? The Individualized Family Service Plan team decides if the child is potentially eligible. The team includes parents, the service coordinator, and providers. A child is considered potentially eligible if they are still expected to need services when they leave early intervention. The transition plan is developed at an individualized family service plan review meeting. This meeting must be held between 9 months and 90 days from when the child is expected to exit early intervention. The transition plan is documented on the transition planning section of the IFSP. Once the initial plan is developed, it can be updated at any time. The transition plan includes the following steps: community options, support to enroll in other programs, and transition services. Service coordinators help families explore what community options they may be interested in when their child leaves early intervention, including early childhood special education services. Community options may include daycares, preschools, outpatient therapy services, and programs such as Head Start. Service coordinators provide information, including contact information, and arrange for visits to programs as desired by families. The service coordinator can also provide names of other families, with their permission, who have transitioned to programs the families are considering, if the family is interested. Service coordinators help plan for support to enroll in available community programs other than early childhood special education through the local school division. Service coordinators can help with getting and filling out paperwork and other necessary steps to enroll in programs the family desires. Once the transition plans have been determined, service coordinators help child and family prepare for leaving early intervention. This may include changes in supports and services to move smoothly out of early intervention into a new program. Changes might include working on things to help a child to adjust to a new setting, like climbing stairs, communicating wants, or social skills. If a child spends most of their time at home, the IFSP team may consider expanding the location of services to help a child adjust to group settings. Transition services may also include support for families to complete activities necessary for their child to move to a new program or setting, such as getting immunizations. The local early intervention program sends a notification to the local school system for all children potentially eligible for early childhood special education unless a parent opts out. This notification is a referral. Service coordinators talk with families about when the notification is sent and how parents can opt out. When the notification is sent depends on whether a family wants their child to transition at the start of the school year if they are 2 by September 30th, or wait to begin at age 3. If a parent chooses not to send notification for their child to begin at age 2, notification can still be sent for the child to begin school-based services at age 3. If a parent opts out of notification, they can change their mind at any time and notification will be sent. Transition planning conferences help families make informed decisions about where their child will transition and when. The local intervention system is required to offer a transition planning conference to all families whose child is potentially eligible for preschool special education. The transition planning conference is held as an IFSP review meeting, and it can be combined with the meeting to develop the transition plan. If a family approves the transition planning conference, required participants include the family, a Part C representative, which is usually the service coordinator, and a representative from the local school system. School systems may participate in person, by phone, or by other electronic means. If a representative is unavailable to attend, the parent is provided with the contact information for who to speak to at the local school system. If the family is interested in learning about other community options, the service coordinator will offer to invite representatives from these programs to attend the transition planning conference if the family agrees. Discussion at the transition planning conference is about the services the child might receive through the public schools, as well as potential service delivery options. Transition planning conferences help alleviate the unknown. Parents can learn, how are school systems similar to early intervention and how are they different? What are the different types of placements their local school system offers? And where and how are services delivered? This is an opportunity for parents to ask questions and gather information. Early intervention can share information with the school system. If the parent signs a release of information, Part C can share the IFSP and other documentation to aid in eligibility determination and individual education plan development. Early intervention helps families to prepare for what's next when their child leaves the program. Early intervention supports families from the initial IFSP to begin planning for transition. Early intervention and early childhood special education work together to plan for smooth transitions supporting family needs. And so now we're going to switch gears, and Tanya is going to pull up our presentation on Part B services, which are called Early Childhood Special Education.
Hey everybody. Okay, so while we're getting that together, I want to check in with everyone, let you know that we are getting the chats coming in, and I do appreciate those. We are going to really quick answer just a couple of questions.
Sure, I see a few questions here. And I see a question about wanting emails. So yes, we will send those out.
Absolutely.
The difference between an IFSP and an IEP, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. An IFSP is the program of services developed by early intervention. It is the focus of the plan is to support developmental needs. An IEP is the plan developed through Part B, and the purpose of that is to support a child's educational needs. So IFSP is Part C, IEP is Part B. The last question we'll address quickly: do you know when a family is ready to go to the transition plan if they are not identified as needing help in the IFSP program? Well, developing a transition plan is only for families whose child is enrolled in early intervention and would have an IFSP. And as I mentioned, talking about transition starts when you write that initial IFSP plan. But if a child is not in early intervention and does not have an IFSP, then the referral would be made directly to the school system, and the Part C program would not be involved in developing a transition plan.
Those are great questions, folks. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's switch gears now and talk about what it looks like from the Part B side. Early childhood special education serves children ages 2 through 5. This transition from early intervention to early childhood special education can be an exciting time. It marks growth and new opportunities. However, parents may have questions about what will happen during transition. Once a child is referred from early intervention to early childhood special education, Part C to Part B, the eligibility determination process begins. The local school system determines what information will be gathered to determine eligibility. If parents sign a release, information from early intervention, Part C, can be used to help determine eligibility. Early childhood special education eligibility is quite different from early intervention eligibility. For a child to be eligible for early childhood special education, the child may have a delay or disability that impacts development in any of the following areas: speech and language, motor and physical, emotional and social, and cognitive. Also, hearing, vision, and/or health. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is the federal law that governs special education services. IDEA recognizes 13 disability categories that are shown on the screen. A child may be found eligible for special education and related services under any one or more of these 13 disabilities. Each disability has a specific set of criteria that is to be met. The category of developmental delay is only for children ages 2 through 6. It is important to keep in mind for a child to be determined eligible for early childhood special education, the child must demonstrate an impairment. On the previous slide, I talked about the different disability categories. However, it is not enough for a child to have a disability. The disability must have an educational impact, and the child must demonstrate a need for specially designed instruction. When considering educational impact, keep in mind for children aged 2 through 5, learning occurs everywhere, not just in a classroom. Children demonstrate their ability to learn by things such as following directions, following a model and imitating. Specially designed instruction is instruction that is needed to help the child learn. For a child to be found eligible for early childhood special education, they must meet the federal definition of one of the 13 disabilities, demonstrate educational impact, and the need for specially designed instruction, in addition to meeting the eligibility criteria identified by the local school system. Once all the information is gathered, the eligibility team meets with parents to review findings and determine eligibility. The parent may invite additional participants to this meeting, such as early intervention providers. If a child is found eligible, the individualized education program is developed by an IEP team, which includes the family, early childhood and special education teachers, a school administrator, and sometimes a speech therapist or other related service providers. The family may invite additional participants, such as providers from early intervention, to the meeting to develop the IEP. The IEP documents the individualized educational program the school will implement based on the needs of the child. It prepares the child to learn it prepares the child to learn alongside his or her non-disabled peers and helps the child reach academic and functional goals. Special education is a service, not a place. It is individualized to meet the needs of the child. Education and/or speech and language therapy may be the primary services on the IEP. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy may be related services based on the needs of the child. Family members are involved in the special education program, so their goals are reflected in the IEP, and they can promote carryover and generalization throughout the child's routine. On this slide, you see a list of possible settings where special education and related services may be delivered for a young child. This includes services delivered in schools, community-based preschool, or the Virginia Preschool Initiative. Some children may be served in the home. This may be especially true for our youngest learners. What options are offered to each child are determined by the local school system. As mentioned earlier when we discussed early intervention, the Transition Planning Conference provides an opportunity for parents to learn what is available in their local school system. The goal of early childhood special education is to help young children develop and learn and make the most of each child's potential, as well as to strengthen the family's ability to support their child. Services are individualized to meet the needs of the child and help them learn.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That is a lot of information. I hope it has been helpful thus far. And we are going to upload the slides so that you guys are able to review them. And also if there's any questions, again, we will go ahead and go through them. But before we get on the questions right now, I would love to allow our parents, Kelly and Leah, to share a little bit about themselves. I've got a couple of questions I wanted to ask, and if anyone that's watching, if you guys have a question for our parents, please feel free to ask. We are here, and I would like to go ahead and, so you ladies introduce yourselves. Thank you so much, but I'd like to start with you, Kelly. How did you get connected with early intervention? How did that process happen? What did it look like?
Great, thanks, Robin. Again, I'm Kelly Webb, and I have a 3-year-old who was just recently discharged from early intervention. We started the process when he was at 6 months of age and doing our pediatrician checkups, and I noticed he wasn't meeting the milestone. So I mentioned that to the pediatrician, who recommended getting connected with early intervention. So he gave me the phone number, and I contacted them to start the process of getting evaluated and assessed with my son and getting services started. So we started early in the game, around 6 months of age. then from there, the pediatrician and also would recommend going to see, for my son's condition, to see certain specialists to kind of explore what the diagnoses may be.
Yeah, it's that can be a little scary, you know, when you're first getting started and it's your first child and you're not sure what's going to happen. I understand. So how I'm going to stay with you for a minute, Kelly. How did early interventions support your child and your family?
Oh, it was super helpful. Being it was my first child and not having any experiences with a child with disabilities, we had in-home services. So we had the therapist, we had all services, speech, occupational, and physical therapy coming to our home. We did some trial and error to see what frequency worked best for my son. So they were helpful in determining what frequency would help him achieve his goals. Setting the goals, they went through the process. All the therapists were wonderful. And we even were in 2 different districts. We went from Richmond City to Henrico County. So I've experienced 2 different districts, and the therapists were amazing in helping set those goals and really talk me through that process of what that looks like in early intervention. Another support they were to me was just answering all my questions. And so before I would go to appointments with different specialists, it was helpful to have the therapist point of view and perspectives and help me kind of create the questions maybe to ask the specialists about what we were noticing, because going to see a lot of a lot of specialists can be overwhelming. And when you go to those appointments, you may forget the questions you have. So I started keeping a journal and logging all those questions. And so I would remember what to ask when I went to those appointments. So the therapists were super helpful with that. And then the other thing that early intervention did was when we decided to try out a preschool and the daycare service, the therapist went to the facility. And so then we had in-home services, but they also supported the teachers at the preschool and working with my son there. So we had this great collaboration between teachers, parent, and child, and what was working and what they were noticing too.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And, you know, I think it's important that families know that they can probably ask that of their therapist to go to the daycare or the school to get that help for them.
And as I mentioned earlier, maybe there's a particular setting like the grocery store that's quite a challenge for you and your family. The therapist can meet you at the grocery store and, you know, coach you through strategies to help that.
Most definitely. We went to parks. We did different things outside because those were some of the skills that we were working on with my son. So they were super flexible and offered that. But it's always good to know that you can ask and you have that ability to do that.
Great. Thank you so much. Leah, I'm going to jump over to you if that's okay.
Yeah.
So your son is a little bit older. So how did you, I wonder, is it the same? Did you guys get connected the same way with early intervention?
Yeah, we had a very similar story to Kelly's. I know there are a lot of families who have a diagnosis and are prepared for this whole path at birth or before birth even. But our case was very much like Kelly's. We just saw missing milestones, and at every ped visit those first few months, I was like, I feel like he should be doing this, and we keep saying no to all these questions at the beginning. And for the first few visits, it was like, they all go at their own pace. You're a new mom, you're gonna worry. It's not a big deal. And then finally, right around 6 months, she was like, yeah, this is not going the way we expect. So she was the one who recommended getting with early intervention and gave us the contact information to do that in our area.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And so how did they support you and your child and your family as a whole?
Well, for really that first visit was incredibly helpful. It was very stressful. I mean, it was circled in red on our calendar for, you know, a long time before it came up, and I was terribly nervous about it, but I was also very eager to hear some feedback from an impartial third party to say, am I seeing what I'm seeing here? I've never done this mom thing before, and I seem to, and maybe I'm crazy. But so that first intake appointment where they do the assessment and they test him on all these things,
Mhm.
we left with the knowledge that he had fallen at least that 25% that you were talking about before. He was falling at least 25% behind in every single category except one. And I think that category was called self-care or something like that. Which
Yeah,
at 6 months of age,
self-adaptation.
at 6 months of age is really just he sleeps for a nice long stretch and he's trying some solid foods or something. So we were like, sleep is important. You know, if there's one thing you're going to excel at,
That's true.
So we were super proud of that one area where he was doing great, but also it was really, it felt weird to be happy to hear that your son is behind in every single area except one. But it was really vindicating for two new parents who weren't sure if we were just seeing things or if we were just expecting too much. Or it was really vindicating for us to see, okay, this is not in our imagination. We really are facing something here.
Right.
And it was also really good to feel like, okay, now we have a plan. Instead of just sitting and watching him and wondering, when's he going to do this? When's he going to do that? We felt like we left there with a plan, which was very helpful.
That's good. That's good to hear. All right. So what, Leah, I'm gonna stick with you for the for this question. What have you learned about yourself or anything, anything new? What have you learned through early intervention? What have they helped you with and, learning through this process?
Well, this is actually sort of a part two to the earlier question. That initial assessment was very helpful, but actually getting the therapy that he qualified for after that first assessment was a little bit more difficult. Our local CSB had a kind of a waiting list for services at the time, but that happened to coincide with Children's Hospital of Richmond had opened a new therapy center near us in Petersburg. So we were able to get those services there while we waited to get up and running with early intervention.
Right.
But through that whole process with early intervention and with the private therapy, I have learned that it's helpful for parents in this boat to seek each other out and to, there are some things that only another parent who's going through this can tell you. There's only so much your pediatrician can tell you. There's only so much early intervention can tell you. To really complete that puzzle, it helps to be able to have another parent who, instead of bragging about how, early their child is doing this, that, or the other, another parent who understands this is kind of weird, and here's some things that have happened to us, and people who get it, whatever you're going through in life, it's really helpful to have people who get it to lean on. And when you are a new mom and you're in the thick of the whole new baby thing, you can feel really isolated. Even with a baby who's developing typically, it can be a very isolating experience. You feel like your whole life is just 2-hour naps and feeding and wiping and it can be very isolating. So and I'm kind of an introvert anyway, so I tend to self-isolate even when I don't mean to. So it's important for I learned through it that it was important to connect with other parents while waiting for therapies to begin. There's that waiting room full of parents and you're all just kind of looking at each other like, I wonder what's going on with that kid, and he looks kind of like mine, and talk to them, get to know each other. You guys can really lean on each other and give good advice. So that was a big one for me.
And Leah, I would like to add that waiting for services in early intervention is a rarity. It is actually one of our regulations that services start within 30 days.
Yeah.
So that is not at all the typical experience. The typical experience is that services start very soon after the IFSP.
I have learned that since. Somewhere around that same time, we got connected with the ARC, which was very helpful. Aside from connecting with other parents, connecting with the ARC was super helpful in letting us know, here's what should be happening and here's what shouldn't be happening, and how to advocate for what you need when it's not just given to you. So that was really super helpful too.
Your point about connecting with other parents is a great point. And,
absolutely.
And back to early intervention and service coordination, that is something that parents can ask their service coordinator to help them with. Can you help connect me with other families in the area or other community resources that are family support groups?
And New Path, that's what we're here for. We are here to help you get connected with other parents so that you're not alone and you don't feel that isolated feeling. Yeah, I experienced that as well when I was going through this 15 years ago with my youngest son, and yeah, it's pretty isolating. It's very scary.
Yeah.
Kelly, how about you? What did you learn from the early intervention?
Early intervention and the therapists were very instrumental in helping me kind of like coach me as a parent too, and knowing kind of what kind of goals, with setting those goals, because I would read and say, oh, the milestones are this, but I just had to stop doing that because that was an over expectation of the time. So setting realistic goals and understanding what types of activities to do in the meantime in between the therapy sessions, kind of like homework of like, what else can we do? So they would kind of guide me with that. Most recently, as we were beginning the transition, as my son stayed through services until his 3rd birthday, they were really helpful in guiding me with that transition and what to expect with the school system, because the school system's goals in the special education program were different from what we had been talking about for the past 3 years in the early intervention program. And so they were helpful in documenting and writing letters and being present at meetings. And so knowing that I could invite them to the IEP meetings was super helpful because it was firsthand experience, and that their willingness to do that, but knowing that I could ask as a parent because I didn't know. I thought IEP meetings were just teachers and parents, and opening it up provided more support for my son because they could say, where we left off and what they thought would be supportive in the transition. And then I called my service coordinator all the time. And so I always felt that she was willing to listen, and I just had questions about the transition for the whole year. I was like, okay, what to expect? So just having the feeling that somebody was there and would pick up the phone or call me right back was super helpful in early intervention.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Kelly, because I noticed in chat there was a comment about sometimes parents are scared to ask for help, and a key role of the service coordinator is to build a collaborative relationship with the family. They are there to support you. They are there to make you comfortable. But, we understand that, opening up to somebody requires a comfort level. But as Kelly has mentioned, that is the role of the service coordinator. They are there for you. They're there for your questions. They're there for you to ask for help. But first, they're going to invest in building a relationship with you so that they are a person you're comfortable to approach.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. All right. So my last question is going to be, what would you like to share with others? What do you want others to know? Leah, we'll start with you. Is there anything that you want to share that you've learned through the process that you would want others to know that are just starting?
Yeah, well, 2 things. One is just a reiteration of my earlier point, to connect with other parents as best you can, and to connect with advocacy organizations like the ARC and New Path that is here for this exact purpose. Those are very important. They'll help you through a lot of question marks that are on this road. And because when you think, even once you've learned the process and you've learned the system that you're in, some new legislation will pass and the whole thing will change. And so it's really hard to keep up with. It's a complex system to start with, and then when it changes, it throws everything up in the air. And I'm an Army brat, and my husband is a veteran, and I always joke with people that learning this whole disability system has involved more acronyms than even the Army did. IFSPs and IEPs and ECSE, and there's so much to learn, and you feel like you need to have a glossary in a wagon pulled behind you. So staying connected in that way is really helpful. The second point is, and stay with me here because it sounds like a cliche, and it is, but there's a reason people always say it: enjoy your child. In the moment, 12 years ago, when I was freaking out about why isn't he doing this and why isn't he doing that, and we've got this meeting with these people and this therapy to go to here. I was so wrapped up in worry and so wrapped up in goals and, plans and objectives and all that, that I wish if I could get in a time machine and go back to 2008 or 2009 and do those months over again. I really wish I had just spent less time worrying about all that and more time just loving on him. And he's a very loved child, don't get me wrong, but I feel like those years and those months are kind of muddied by me wringing my hands a lot and worrying about things. And every pregnant woman waddling around a grocery store hears that, oh, enjoy it, it's wonderful years and blah, blah, blah. And it's hard to remember, and it feels like, okay, that's easy for you to say because you're not up all night with him. But it's true. If you can just remember to like take a deep breath and smell that little baby head and just love those months, they go by so quickly. They really do.
Thank you so much. That is great advice. And I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to piggyback on that. I think because my son, who is now 15, and we have our challenging times, but there's those moments that you will never get back. You will never get back. And so just take care of every minute and love on him every chance that you get. And he's given to you for a reason. Our children are given to us for a reason. And so just accept it. Help yourself get educated and have your supports in place. Don't forget about New Path. We are here from the beginning. I see the questions that have popped up, and yes, we are here for your questions to help you through that journey. So yeah, we'll get you through this. That was great information. And so Kelly, let's end it with you. What is your takeaway with early intervention?
Right. I couldn't be more grateful for early intervention. So starting early, I'm grateful that we did pick up on those cues right away and get started. I remember feeling like, I don't know, and having some doubt, and certainly going through the roller coaster of the grief process. And when things start coming in, all these diagnoses, and just grappling with that. But I always stuck with early intervention, and I was like, this is important. And even the times when I thought, I think we're doing too much therapy. Let's kind of slow down a little bit and just let him soak things in. And the therapists were understanding of that, and let's just try things out. And so they were flexible in making adjustments, because like Leah said, you got to enjoy them too. And so I didn't feel so much like sessions and all this therapy. It can get overwhelming depending on your situation. Other recommendations I had were inviting people to the therapy sessions, including caretakers, other family members, so they can also be helpful, maybe give you a break, but also reinforce things when you're not there. And having people go to meetings with you, particularly when you're going through the transition process and going to Part B services, inviting other people to be a support with you, because it's a lot of information. And if you're like me, I was focused on my child and it had emotional connection, and having, somebody else who has a different perspective of the child's needs and focused on that. It's helpful to have people support you. I was so grateful. I called just a few months ago when I got connected with Robin on the ARC. I called her up. I had questions. She called me right back. So the ARC is a tremendous support system, and I'm so glad I had found it.
Thank you,
Kelly, if I could add something to what you said about therapy sessions. In early intervention, our goal is to coach the parent or the caregiver, because we recognize that you all are with your child 24/7. So the limited amount of time that the providers are with you, our focus is to help you with strategies and activities in your daily routines that will support your child's development. So you're right. The high frequency of services is really not our goal, because parents are and caregivers are the primary people working with their child. We want to empower you.
Right.
So, Robin, do we want to move to our questions?
Sure, we can do that. All right, so we're going to look through the chat box while we still have a few minutes left. And let's read through some of these and see what we need to address right now.
I think we got some of the questions
We
earlier
did.
when we were between the presentations. I believe I saw one question about when you're, if after your child is born, when you're in the hospital, how do you get connected with early intervention? The NICU units, the doctors at the hospital are all very familiar with early intervention, and getting into early intervention starts with, I think we're a little lower than that. Getting into early intervention starts with a referral. Anybody can make a referral to early intervention. Kelly and Leah talked about doctors' offices and hospitals making referrals. Parents can make a referral. Once a referral is made, the early intervention program reaches out and makes contact with that parent. If the referral is made while the child is still in the hospital, we'll reach out, make contact with that parent, and then the first step is we schedule an intake, which is usually a face-to-face, or in our current times through telehealth, meeting with the family to gather information to look at would the child be eligible. So if your child is in the hospital, that referral will be made if they're premature or there are concerns in the hospital, and then the early intervention program will reach out to you.
And so I do want to address this one question. If parents are scared to ask for help, what would you tell the parents? Lily, I think every parent is probably, or most parents are very afraid to ask for help. I know I was, and I knew my son had issues because he spent so much time in the NICU before coming home. And so I'm going to put my name and my email in the chat box, and I hope that you reach out to me. You and I can talk privately, so that, you know, just we need to talk. And also, you had mentioned that your child with autism, or a child with autism, and going out in public places is a problem. And what would the advice be? And you know, I remember taking my son to the grocery store, and he would wipe off the shelf. Literally wipe off the shelf with his arm when he was little, and I couldn't take him anywhere. So I understand that fear. My son has a sensory processing disorder, and so we can talk about that more because there are resources to help you for that. I would love to connect with you. So I am going to put my email in the chat box. Did you have something, Sarah, to add?
I was going to add, you know, when we develop the goals and the objectives for the individualized family service plan in early intervention, we're looking at what are the things that parents want to address, what are their challenges, what are their needs. So if going out in public is a challenge, yes, for a family, then that is certainly something that early intervention providers can help with. And even transition up to, like I mentioned earlier, actually having a session in the grocery store. And I think we've got just a few more minutes. I also saw a question that Lily put in here about if you have specific questions about how things are handled in the school system.
Restraints.
If the child misbehaves or there's a problem, how things are handled. First of all, that's a great question to ask at your transition planning conference. If that's something you're concerned about and you want to know, that's a great question to ask there. And also, when you develop that IEP, that's the place too, that if you have specific requests or specific things that you know work well with your child and what your child responds best to, then you can request that those kinds of things be included in the IEP. So that's certainly, if you have concerns about how a problem may be handled in a classroom, in a school setting, then those are questions to ask at the transition planning conference. Share that concern at the IEP meeting, and work together to come up with a plan in that IEP that you're comfortable with.
Absolutely. And so just remember, you are the voice for your child in that IEP meeting. And if it's something that you're not comfortable with that's on the IEP, you do not have to sign that IEP. You are the one behind the driver's wheel. And so please feel free to call the team back together, review the IEP, and let them know what you need and what your child needs, because nobody, like Sarah said earlier, nobody knows your child better than you. And so you are the one that's here to advocate for them. If you don't feel comfortable with something, let the IEP team know that you're not comfortable with that and we need to find another solution.
Well, this is Tanya again, and I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to the Infant and Toddler Connection of Virginia for sponsoring this, and Robin, Sarah, Leah, Kelly. We appreciate all of your time sharing information, and Leah and Kelly for sharing your personal experiences. We really do appreciate that. And all of your questions in the chat box were very helpful. We will be providing slides on the convention website, so you'll have a place later to see that in the week. And since you all were so patient, one, you were our first session kicking off the week, and you put up with our issues that we had related to technology. So I did want to do a prize drawing, and we randomly selected from our attendees. Amanda Brothers will receive a beach bag with yay, Amanda, yay, Amanda.
Congratulations.
Amanda, if you will just email me your information, we will get this sent to you. tmilling@thearcofva.org. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it, and we'll see you all at later sessions this week, today and this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.